Today, Intel is raising prices. Their 13600K can challenge AMD's 5950X. Intel promises Arc will kill everyone in price to performance, and AMD's fighting Nvidia on every front. Welcome everyone to Gamer Melt. First up for today, according to a new report originally from DigiTimes and later reported by WCCF Tech, Intel is having issues with oversupply, and because of that, they're trying to force vendors into buying more chips now by promising price increases later. In fact, they allegedly told vendors that, quote, "You better purchase our CPUs while you can buy at the current price because this is your last chance." Talk about an aggressive marketing strategy. Now, this could come back to bite them as vendors would likely purchase less later. Of course, they do have releases coming up, so it may not affect them too much given they would buy less of the older chips anyway. Regardless, if this is right, Intel is clearly having some issues right now. According to DigiTimes, we should begin seeing price increases as early as fall. Hopefully vendors will absorb some of that, but consumers will likely pay a bit more as well. Now, if you've been having problems buying a current gen GPU, you actually have a chance to pick up one of Nvidia or AMD's next gen GPUs when they're released. If you sign up for the GamerMail Notification Squad, a free way to keep up with all the great PC hardware releases coming soon. From awesome new PC hardware deals to getting notified right when a big release drops. Just visit the link in the description, put your email in, and you're all set. I won't send you a bunch of spam or anything like that either. The last thing I sent was on Amazon's Prime Day. I mean, it's free, and you can unsubscribe anytime you want, so there's nothing to lose. Join the thousands of others by visiting the link in the description below. Next up for today, we have a huge story on one of Intel's next-gen CPUs. Specifically, their 13600K was just released in Geekbench, and it completely dominates. As you can see, it's a 14-core, 20-thread CPU. To break that down, it uses 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. Here, it was running at a base clock of 3.5 GHz and a boost of 5.1. When it comes to performance, things get interesting. As you can see, it got a single-core score of 2012 and a multi-core score of 16,054. When we compare this to the 12600K, that's around 8% faster in single-core and a whopping 38% faster in multi-core. But get this, when we compare it to AMD's current gen 16-core 5950X, so we're talking an i5 compared to AMD's highest-end i9, and Intel's 13600K beats it in single-core by a whopping 20%, yet only loses in multi-core by 3%. So we're basically talking a margin of error difference here. Maybe a little over that, but just barely. Meaning Intel's next gen i5 is on par with AMD's current gen 16 core. And of course, anything that uses less than 16 cores will likely see the i5 take the lead, especially given that huge difference in single core performance. Not only that, but a story dropped from known leaker Enthusiastic Citizen, who claims that Intel's 13th gen CPUs are set to be announced on September 28, with the actual release on October 17th. At the end of the day, it looks like Intel is bringing the heat with next gen. Time will tell if AMD has something special up their sleeve to compete. Next up, Intel's flagship A770 has been tested in a few games, and we get some big news on pricing. The story originally comes from a video by Linus Tech Tips, which features the new GPU, as well as the Intel employees who brought it. Starting things off, Linus explains a pretty big discrepancy that Intel's Arc has between DirectX 11 and DirectX 12. As you can see, we're talking half the performance when moving from DX12 to DX11. And that's basically because Intel simply hasn't had the years AMD and Nvidia has had to optimize for all these games and APIs. Plus, game developers won't optimize for Intel until there's a large install base. And that is understandable. But here's where things get interesting. Intel's Tom Peterson begins discussing the company's 3-tier strategy for optimization. Tier 1 is games that run the best on Arc GPUs. We're talking the most popular games on DirectX 12 that are highly optimized for Arc. Then there's Tier 2, which includes games on the new APIs that work well on Arc but aren't as optimized. And finally is Tier 3, which includes games that aren't optimized for Arc, including older DirectX 11 games. Here's the kicker though. Intel is planning to price these GPUs using Tier 3 performance, meaning their worst performing games. And Tom Peterson actually says it right here.
At what we're calling Tier 1, we're going to kill everyone in price to performance.
So yeah, Intel is planning to dominate in price to performance, especially in Tier 1, given the pricing will be based on Tier 3. So any performance above that is simply icing on the cake. Intel then went on to show some gameplay, but they only showed FPS and Tomb Raider. They also showed the card with a default clock speed of 2.5 GHz. All in all, I definitely think this is a good strategy for Intel. Let's just hope they can get them released before next year. And lastly for today, it looks like AMD is challenging Nvidia on every single front. If you remember, just a couple years ago, Nvidia released a really interesting piece of software called RTX Voice. It uses AI to remove background noise in real time, so you can use it with voice calls, live streams, recordings, etc. And it really is a cool plugin. Well, a new video was mistakenly posted by AMD themselves. I say mistakenly because they took it down pretty fast, and in the video it said that it was released. Yet it isn't. Luckily, users downloaded it before they took it down. As you can see, it's a noise suppression based technology that uses deep learning just like Nvidia's RTX Voice, and it essentially does the same thing. That's really interesting because Nvidia's RTX Voice is only supported on Nvidia GPUs. Originally, Nvidia only released it for their RTX cards, but after a hack allowed it to work on GTX cards, Nvidia went ahead and added the support officially. Of course, there are third-party solutions, but this will definitely be a nice addition to AMD users, especially given it looks to work right in AMD's Adrenalin driver. As for release, we unfortunately don't have a date, but given the video says available now, it's likely coming in the next Adrenalin driver. So while that does it for today, what do you think about AMD's new tech? And what about Intel's flagship A770? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please subscribe. And as always, have a great day.